Hey guys, today we're taking a look at the 5Ds collection that came out a few days ago. A little late on looking it up, but I was gone for a few days and then DN didn't have it for a little while, so wasn't able to do it early. But I did want to talk about it because there were three new cards. Pretty short video here, just because I want to talk about these three cards. There's nothing else new in the pack. Obviously, the big collection, the new challengers, is going to be coming soon, which I'll have a ton of talk about there. But there are three new cards in here that are really interesting, and I do want to talk about them. So there was a new trap card that was added, Stardust Flash, that you can basically just summon any Stardust monster from your graveyard. So this card, it looks really nice for a deck that's focused on Stardust Dragon. Not many decks try to focus on him, but there are a lot of really interesting things that you can do with this. A bunch of different ones spring to mind. Like if you're running something like Assault Mode Stardust, you can, bring out Assault Mode and then summon Stardust Dragon on top of that because you're sending Stardust to the graveyard. Even though you won't have the ability to get Stardust back, you'll still really have a huge situation on the field for your opponent to deal with. Obviously, this can also summon other Stardust monsters if you're trying to bring out something like Majestic Star Dragon. So I think this card will be really, really cool for those decks that are really going to focus on any type of Stardust monster. So I really do like this trap. And if you're focusing on a card like that, this will be a big advantage card for you. And because there's a lot of different ways to build around Stardust, I think that's a pretty cool card in general. So the other two cards that were added in this pack are these two Nordic cards. They're extremely weird, very unique, very interesting. They're pretty crazy. They seem to be focused on OTKs or giving your opponent a monster that is kind of trying to annoy them and lock them down and do additional things. So there's two different ones, Fenrir and Jormungardr. They're a little bit different. You need an Acer monster regardless, which is kind of the problem with these cards. You're going to need to have one of those powerful synchro monsters up already. But if you do have that, you can bring this out and kind of destroy your opponent with what you're trying to do. So Fenrir is at 4,000, 4,000, so you're giving your opponent this really strong monster, but both players take any battle damage. So the big thing about this card is that you're forcing your opponent to be in attack position, and if you're in the advantage, like you have more life points than your opponent, you can almost guarantee a win because you can run, monsters into it, and you're both going to be taking a ton of damage. So this is a really interesting card in that regard. Again, the only problem is you need an Acer monster, but this is a really easy card to set up an OTK when you do have an Acer monster and some of those weaker monsters. Start to think about how the Nordics work. They have a lot of weaker tuners. Imagine you could just run them into Fenrir, deal like 4,000 damage to most players. Hopefully you have a small advantage and you win the duel very quickly. And then Jormungardr is at 3,000, 3,000. This one's a little bit different. It kind of has the same thing where you need an Acer, you need to summon it. What's nice about this card is that if your opponent brings it into attack position, they already take 3,000 damage. So there are a few things you could do here you might see kind of interesting. The fact that these could combo together. If you have Fenrir, he can bring Jormungardr into attack position and take that 3,000 damage. Maybe there are some cards you want to switch position with that you could do some interesting things there. So I could see some interesting power there. These cards I really need to take a stronger look at and play around with. They seem more OTK oriented. They seem more about controlling your opponent. They seem very risky and dangerous, but if you have the right kind of back row setup or the right monster setup, your opponent is going to kind of struggle with them. Very interesting, kind of the levels and the types on them. Fenrir is a level 8, so if you do have a way to bring him back to the graveyard, you could bring him back with something like Iris Rock Sunrise, and then you could rank 10 possibly with like Thor or something. So there are a few different things I can see that could be really interesting for certain deck types. Jormungardr is like level 8, so not as interesting there, but it is a dragon, so maybe it can benefit from some other interesting things there. Very weird cards. I really like to see what people are going to do with them in the future, but for now they seem kind of risky. But maybe if you build it around them correctly, I'm more worried about them being a dead draw if you don't have an Acer monster on the field, and still being a dead draw because if you special summon them at the wrong time, then it really is going to hurt you. So I'm still thinking about what you can do with this, but I know there are some powerful combos that could exist in the game to really take full advantage of these cards. Just think about like what spells and traps could really bring out this advantage. Like I was saying, Iris Rock Sunrise, and some other really interesting things that you could do with these cards. So those were the only new cards that were in this pack. Still really interesting. Really excited to see Nordics having new cards. I would like to see them have more cards that specifically kind of benefit their more play style, but this kind of interesting cool tech that are very unique cards just in general is just really cool in my opinion. So I would really like to see these get built upon in the future and see more support for it. But let me know what you guys think about the new cards if you're going to use them in your decks, your opinions on some of them. Again, they're pretty cool. I'll probably take advantage of Stardust Flash in one of my decks that uses Stardust, and maybe in my Nordic decks in the future. I don't know. These cards I'm still kind of throwing around ideas with, so maybe sometime in the future I'll be taking a look at that. But give me your own opinions in the comments. But that's about it for me. As always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.